I gotta like do this, and then do this.
What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for tuning in to Self-Evident Podcast. You got your guy, Massey. Mike is here. He's just a incognito. I don't know if you can hear that. He had to step out for a second. Perfect timing. And I was not even supposed to mention that he's not here, but I ended up doing it anyways. Good morning. We are here, guys. God bless you. Thanks for tuning in this morning. If you guys have not, again, subscribe. It's kind of the thing. Selfevidenttruth.com, theselfevidenttruth.com. Well, on there, it's actually pinned on our comments. Be sure to sign up for our new blog. We also have newsletter, let you know what's going on in the communist thing. And Mike, you're the man, dude. Got me some coffee. We're pros here.
I got you covered.
We did that before, but it just didn't work. Anyway,
we kind of didn't have
he
here to get us the coffee.
We're missing our fella. We're missing the fella.
The fella we call Easy E.
But IC don't take care of it, man. She
I'm already doing comments. You guys are liking.
Yeah.
Oh.
Look at Josh. Like, comment, share, do the things. Yes, do the things.
Bro,
share, subscribe. Guys, we just crossed a significant number on our YouTube.
Yeah. Josh, you want a job, by the way?
Got you, Josh. I'm not saying anything, but
we did. You're right. We crossed 900. We need your help to get to 1,000 because that opens up a lot for us.
Yeah.
So,
but we hit 100,000 views too. Yes,
we did.
For us, that's big.
It really is, honestly. The last podcast did well. Okay, it did well on the YouTube.
We got 2 views this time.
Yeah, it's better than the 1. We're up 100%. Woo!
Guys, we're on our way. We're taking off. I can see it now. I can see the rays of sunshine on our ministry. And we shall see this ascension of what we've been called to do.
The Lord has called us.
But we got a lot to talk about today. So, guys, you guys see the title, Financial Meltdown, or is it?
Dun, dun, dun.
Let me do that again. Financial Meltdown, or is it?
Dun, dun. Okay, there's a whole reason that we did that title for you guys. Because if we just said, hey, learn about the financial system, you guys would tune out within the first 5 seconds. So, we don't actually believe that there is going to be a financial meltdown, but we're going to make this fun for you because there are opportunities for financial meltdown. By the way, Josh said, also, go watch that new movie, Left Behind, Rise of the Antichrist. Really good movie. Dude, we got to hire him as
he's the
social
guy.
media
He's
promoter.
the man.
Dude.
I think. So Mike and I went last night real fast. We went last night. Great movie. Definitely, if you're a theologian who believes mid-trib, post-trib, you're going to find just that's the only thing that will disturb you about the movie. When it comes to the gospel, when it comes to prophecy, Bible prophecy, it was like as accurate as you can get as far as like, the cool thing is they made you think what could be. And it was like very well done.
I think that was my biggest takeaway. And if you do not get stuck into the whole pre-post.
And
don't, because you won't see the movie for what it is, right? And Massey and I were talking, one of the things that I thought they did really, really well was imagining what would it be like if the rapture happened pre-trib, right? How would people react? How would the world get over that? The fact that a bunch of people just disappeared, right?
Let's keep going.
I don't know what happened.
I'll point it out later, but yes, you're right. No, the message, you were saying the message was the gospel. Like our it's a shot. So like the message was the gospel all the way through and through. It was people realizing they were not caught up in the rapture. The rapture had already happened. Why didn't we listen to the gospel? And it was funny how they weaved all this like, oh, that's just misinformation. We got to quit the false information, all this other stuff. And I thought, it was just, again, it was very well done. So kudos to the Sorbos. Kudos to the whole production team. Kudos to all that. You want to invite your friends to it. You still got 3 more days to go watch that thing. Left Behind movie, and it's awesome. And so I would like to talk to them on the podcast about it. I thought it was great. Is it Will it be pushed by Hollywood? Obviously not, because Hollywood's in bed with half this crap that's going on in that movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're pushing the narrative. You think, oh yeah, let's go tell on ourselves. No, of course not. So, anyways, my
No, that's good. That's exactly right.
It's worth nothing.
and of course they drop little nuggets.
It was awesome.
I love the
It was awesome.
references to things that have gone on and are going on in today's culture.
And the guy they were doing, I can't give it away.
Yeah, we're not
giving it away, but even the way they did that news, the news guy, just how he was hammering things, it's like, just very good. If you'll see, it's like, oh, that was very, very wise to do. So, again, go see it if you get a chance. It's still in Palm Beach, also in St. Lucie, here if you're local, and just check online. Just go to Left Behind. And so what are we talking about today? We're talking about all things financial. We're talking about the financial meltdown and what's going on with the financial system. One of the things that we're kind of, this is going to be a topic that is not exactly the funnest. I'm talking about where it's so engaging, but you're going to want to hear a lot of the stuff that we're saying so that you're prepared to understand what's going on in these times. I don't like the whole saying, understand this stuff. I've commented on that many times before. I just think when us as Christians get prepared, we know how to at least think through it, right? Have a strong grip on it and say, Lord, okay, I kind of understand this. What do you want me to do in the process and not be caught off guard? Because we're supposed to study and show ourselves approved to God. So we should always be knowing these things. God should be quickening our spirits all the time to something that's going on around us, especially if it's your calling to know what's going on. So what we're talking about tonight is all things financial. Has it all been kind of a myth to you? The finances?
Finance. Do you not understand the financial realm? Would you like to know more about investing in the stock market?
Yeah, invest in gold. No, we're not sponsored by nobody either.
But we could be.
Could be. I mean, so we're going to clear a lot of the stuff up this morning, and I think a lot of us know that the financial system, especially in the United States with the Federal Reserve, all this other stuff, there's been a lot of growth and increase because of it, but there's also been a lot of damage done because of it, because a lot of it was giving obeisance to a thing that is not even federal. I mean, Federal Reserve is no more federal than FedEx is.
Right.
So like, it's the feds are creating money out of thin air. That's what they do, right? And we've allowed them to do that, and it's just a corrupt system now. They can just print and raise tax or debt ceilings and do all these things. And the excuse is it's because we can hedge ourselves because of our assets, right? We have tons of assets in America. Well, assets are only as valuable as someone's willing to pay for it. And if they don't find America valuable, then our assets are worth nothing. Think about it. Everything we have now, our $20 bill, it's only $20 now, but there's nothing backing it. You believe it because I give it to you and it says 20 on it, so you take it as a $20 bill. Mm-hmm. But take that with anything going on right now. Who's controlling the prices of these things? Hear my heart. I'm not talking conspiracy. Who controls all the prices for supply and demand? Like, I don't think eggs are worth $8.99. Right. I've never seen that before. $6.99, whatever it is, right now. My wife does the shopping. I just hear about it. Oh my gosh, I'm dying.
I've never actually seen the cost of the eggs. I just hear about it from my wife, which is actually true. My wife is the one who comes back and reports. So, love you, babe. Keep buying eggs.
Yeah. So, all right. So, but it's what we're willing to pay for it, and we'll go out and buy it, right? So you got to figure out either get them cheaper, grow them yourself, or pay the convenience fee. And all of those guys are in bed in the financial system. So it starts, even this whole local thing that we're seeing, like all the eggs and all there's a greater conglomerate going on. So we're going to try to break that down for you today.
Yeah. So we're going to start at the beginning. Stick with me. I told Massey, look, we got to keep this fun and interesting for you guys. So this may go off the rails, and that's okay. That's okay. Dun, dun, dun. All right. We're going to start from the beginning. Let's say that you live ancient Middle East. Okay. Now your wife has been hounding you for a new rug. She's gone, I am so tired of this dirt floor. I need a rug now. And you finally say, okay, whatever. So you get out of your easy chair and you look around. Okay, what can I bring to market? I'll bring my donkey. He's farting a lot and I'm done with him. So you go to the rug dealer down the street. The rug dealer. Yeah, that's right. The guy in the alley got rugs in his coat. Show him your wonderful donkey, who's great. And the rug dealer doesn't need him. I don't need that donkey. Why would I give you a rug for the donkey? I don't need it, right? So the problem that gets solved is money. Money is something that two people use to hold value, right? So instead of you saying, well, now I got to find somebody that has something that the rug dealer would want that I could trade my donkey to get that thing to go back to the rug dealer, you go, well, I'll sell the donkey to somebody who needs it. I'll take that money. I'll walk over, give it to the rug dealer. I've got my rug. This happened a long time ago.
Right.
And they were using pieces of gold, silver, they were using jewels. Native Americans even used like rare shells, kind of as a coinage.
Guys, people used different things like, body parts sometimes, teeth. I mean, anything, like, it's just weird. Like currency is seriously, right? Currency is anything. Bartering, that's a currency. You know what I mean? So like, it's just, there's different types of, and Paul's right. There's no such thing as a fixed standard, because what is gold?
Right.
We only value it by what we think it is. So it's all this like ethereal. Finances are a tricky thing, but we base our entire government and nation and things that we do on a fixed system that's not fixed. That's so crazy, right?
And we all put our faith into it. And we're going to get into the whole central bank, Federal Reserve, all of that stuff. We'll get into that in a little bit.
You
So
see that?
stick through us.
Victoria said you can rent a chicken for $5.75 a month.
$5.75 a month. Boy, you buy a chicken for $5.
Paul, you could lease a Jaguar and rent a chicken for $1,000 a month. I say that because he drives one.
Which one has more worth at this point, right? The chicken can lay eggs. What can the Jaguar do? That's for Paul.
Whoa, shots fired.
Starting fights. Okay. So suddenly this craze of using, we'll use money got so big, government got itself in. What does government not get itself involved in at some point, right? So rulers started to create their own currency, started to make and mint these coins, whether they're gold or silver or whatever. And that became an item authorized by the government to use as money. That's called currency.
Right.
So they were minting currency so that you could go to your rug dealer and you could buy your wife a rug, and then she's happy with you. Happy wife, happy life.
Yep.
So get her a rug. That's the lesson.
Happy wife, happy life. She'll only be happy when you're acting like the man anyway.
Ooh.
Anyway, sorry.
Ooh.
Off topic.
Ooh.
Move.
How many people felt that? I felt that. That was tense. So these coins were precious metals. Okay. They would mint them out. As the government issued these coins in silver or gold, they also found it a lot easier to do something else. And you'll love this. They found it easier to tax you.
They sure did.
All of a sudden, it got a lot easier than going and trying to confiscate donkeys and sheep and land. Yep. And now we could just say, well, give me so much a month.
Yeah, so the easier currency, the easier the currency system, the easier, number one, it is to track, but the second to tax you. Evidenced by when they say they quote unquote legalize the marijuana sales. It was easy to tax. The government then's like, well, if we can't stop it, we might as well capitalize on it. And they did. Well, some say the government's involved in it. Just,
there's
cocaine
actually,
cowboys, just look it up.
There's theories going around that in the whole legalized stuff, Colorado, the Federal Reserve is got their hands in that whole thing too. So
I can feel Paul saying, "Don't go conspiracy, guys."
All right. So, as we'll talk about in a second, the supply of currency has been increased in countries. Okay, this is governments producing more and more currency. Now, when paper money was created, it gave the opportunity for governments to not use a more fixed value system and went to a fiat. So what's the difference? Massey was talking about the gold standard. It used to be every dollar that was produced had to have some amount of gold, a certain fixed amount of gold in physical possession of the government. Do you remember Fort Knox? If you're old enough, you remember that whole the gold at Fort Knox idea. In 1971, under the Bretton Woods, they separated or severed that it was holding on by a thread anyways, but they separated that. They said, okay, we're not going by the gold standard anymore, which interestingly enough, we had a massive amount of the world's gold after World War II. And that was one of the ways that we got really rich, was countries were giving us their gold so we could sell military supplies to them. We gathered all it up, and all of a sudden, when countries were requiring their gold back, we cut them off. Kept the gold. Nah, we're not going by the gold standard anymore. The U.S. currency became the reserve currency. Does that make sense?
Ooh.
So that's fiat currency.
It's easy to control states too. You know, it's like, so I got to go on this tangent for a minute so you understand. We're doing a whole thing now on the foundations of liberty, and why would it have been better just being the Articles of Confederation or the Constitutional Convention? There's debates, Federalist, Anti-Federalist, all this other stuff. But ultimately, the states were supposed to be their own governments. Right. And under what was tough, I get what they were doing. And you can take and gather from this what you want. But when you have individual currencies, it's really hard to keep them together, right? Because one transfer to another state, transfer rates and all these other things, right? It makes it difficult. So I get what they were doing. If we can have just one currency that all comes together, because the South had their own currency during the Civil War, before the Civil War. So the South had their own currency, the North had their own currency, and the exchange rates were astronomical. It was really weird how that was all set up. And so I get what they were trying to do, but why we're bringing this up is we're giving you kind of an understanding and a history of like how this all impacts everything that we do, so that you kind of see it's not just something we either gloss over and just say, no big deal, God's got me, or, because he does ultimately, right? But your understanding of it will give you the way to pray about it, the way to like have confidence in it with the Lord. You know what I mean? That's why we're doing this. So we're not trying to bore you with all this stuff. What we're trying to say is pay attention to what's going on. And when you do that, you'll have a, and then go look at history. Look what happens with currencies and how they rise and fall. And, like the Chinese yen was bunk, and now it's like poof, it's a mess.
And we're hoping that we'll fill in gaps for you in certain areas so that you can fill in gaps of your knowledge of what's going on in the world. Because when you hear terms thrown around and events, we want you to be able to understand, okay, this is what's going on. So you may know most of this, and if you do, stick with us, put in your thoughts where you want to. But if there's something we fill in, all the better. Because one of the most important things I think that we try to do is we try to get it so that you can make those connections all the way through. And you go, I figure, okay, now that makes sense. That gap got filled in, right? I do want to read Paul's comment. So Paul said, a thought about the gold standard versus GDP. So GDP, gross domestic product, that's basically what your country produces, the value, right, of what your country produces. GDP is the total economic output of a nation for 1 year. In 2020, this was 20 trillion for the U.S. It was 53 billion in 1920. Could reserves of gold grow fast enough to support the money supply needed for the liquidity needs of businesses growing at that rate? If the money supply was limited to the reserves of gold on hand, what kind of limit? Paul, did you read my notes? You totally stole my point. No, he's absolutely right.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Nailed it.
Now,
and he actually changed my mind about this whole thing. Sorry.
No. And for the rest of us who just didn't understand what that was, we're going to dummy that down for me. For me here. I'm reading this going,
what?
That's why I'm saying don't get bored out.
Yeah.
Like,
so basically, and we'll get into this more in a bit, but basically what Paul's saying, look, you only have so much gold in the world. Yeah, these gold miners on TV shows on history or whatever, they get a couple 100 ounces in a season. I don't know what they end up digging up in a season, a good season, right? Not much. It's not enough to actually look at the economy. Plus, we're growing people. We're not losing people in the world population. We're growing them. We were, 7 billion just 10 years ago. Now we're at 8 billion. We now have 8 billion people on the face of the earth. All of them are trying to buy and sell. If you only have so much gold, how do you tie enough money to that gold to feed and clothe everybody? You know what I mean? So Paul makes a good point, and he actually changed my mind on this of, wait a second, the danger of the gold standard is it doesn't expand fast enough to include everybody.
But wouldn't the rarity of it make it to where the price skyrockets, right? So like it's supply and demand, correct?
Right.
So then there would have to be other precious metals to back it up, which we don't probably have enough of that.
Right.
Copper, nickel, right? So I get that. But wouldn't that drive prices lower if we didn't have enough currency? And this is a question I'm asking, like, because guys, we're learning together here. So wouldn't that drive prices lower because we don't have enough circulation of money under the standard? You understand what I'm saying? Because now everything's inflated. Right?
I think his point, or one point that he might make, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but one point he might make, banks would only have so much to loan out to businesses. So that means
Go fix it.
fewer and fewer businesses would have enough, this term liquidity, and we're going to get into that. They would have fewer and fewer businesses would have enough money to grow their business and expand their business. And I think that's probably one point Paul would make. What is liquidity? It's how easy can money move. That's basically what it is, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is, what happened was the banks loan out money so that your rug dealer can grow his business. Let's say your rug dealer's doing well, but his business is kind of at a stopping point.
I get it.
So the bank, he goes to the bank. He says, look, I need to hire more employees. I need this. I need this. Bank says, okay, well, we'll give you the coins. You pay them back with a fee. Right. So liquidity is there's more money for the bank to loan out. And like, cool. Paul said I'm on with this. If we tied it to gold, gold's not expanding, and so therefore liquidity doesn't expand. So therefore it's not as easy for businesses. Now, I'm sure there's a counterpoint in all of that.
Yeah. No.
There's interesting.
It is interesting, and I think the point I'm making is when there's a currency being done or there's a currency had, what's to stop it from someone inflating, like a government? Because the only ones that are inflating and conflating these things are dudes with force, right? Like a gang or a cartel, right? They can drive up any price they want, and they're gonna shoot you in the process because you better pay for it or else. And governments, I'm serious, right?
You're
so
right.
Like, if there's nothing backing it, what's to stop a government, force to just overinflate, lend it to who they want to, that kind of thing.
You get $1, everybody gets $1.
Bro, yeah.
And it really is that case at this point. And I'm glad you say that, because we're getting into that real quick.
Yeah.
So in this whole loaning, banks loan out, they get their money back. There's a risk, right? What if the rug dealer goes out of business? He can't pay his bills. That bank loses out on not only the money they gave him, but the profit that they would have made coming back in. And so there's this rise and fall and panics, and all of that runs on the bank, because the banks are only required to hold a certain fraction of money to be able to hand out. So if everybody rushes in to grab their money because they're like, oh, I heard the bank doesn't have enough money to give it all out to us, and things are going bad, we got to get our money out before they take it.
Yeah.
That bank collapses.
Yeah, that's a run.
That's a run. And so in the 1920s, that's what happened.
Yep.
People lost faith in the system. They heard rumors that things were starting to collapse. So they all ran in, and the whole system went right.
And what's crazier than that is, if you guys watch like It's a Wonderful Life, there was actually a scene of that where the banks were calling in their, people were calling in their money, and they had to shut down a bank for a week. The guy in town bought up everyone's shares of the bank at 50 cents on the buck. That's corruption at its finest, right?
Yep.
So it's weird how this whole thing can get manipulated, and anything's manipulatable, but it's like, that's why I'm saying this is such a weird and interesting topic to think about and talk about. And again, I'm so grateful I have my two very smart friends that are on my side.
I just try to keep up with Paul.
Right.
I mean,
same.
I get his, Paul, this is for you. I get your research notes, and I've got to like translate them into common. What? And so in this risk idea, one of the things that banks are supposed to do is figure out, is this loan good for me to give out? And this actually points to, y'all got to hear this. I love this example in terms of student loans. So you're a business owner. You want to open a business. So you go to the bank, and you have to give them your financial history, credit score, references, write out your plan. You go in with everything, and they could still say, no, I can't give you that $50,000. We don't think this is a good investment. But government will guarantee that an 18-year-old who has no clue what to do with their life can have an unlimited blank check to go to school. $200,000 for underwater basket weaving. Yay!
And governments know if they can't pay for it, we'll subsidize. So prices keep. This is what I'm saying.
Right.
Everything's manipulated.
Right. The danger is when you don't allow people to mitigate their own risk. When you try to save them, you end up causing bad problems. Okay. Now, getting forward. So things were shaky for some banks and things would go up and down. So smart people came in and said, well, we need a central bank because everybody else does it. Doesn't that sound strangely familiar? Like scripture. Well, everybody else is doing it. Why can't we do it? And it actually started right after the country was founded. So in 1789, the U.S. was on shaky financial ground. You had a bunch of currencies that were worth nothing between the states. They owed massive debts to France for the war, massive debts to private investors who were giving money in arms and ships and stuff to the American Navy or the American military. And so Congress approved a Treasury Department to start figuring out, okay, we'll have a currency, we'll start paying off debts, we'll figure this out. We got to stabilize the financial system. In walks Alexander Hamilton, the monarch in sheep's clothing.
Gosh,
this guy.
A big government federalist at its finest at that time. He would be considered way conservative today, but he was a big government.
Oh, he was
nuts.
And I got a quote from him that pretty much showed he thought we should be Britain. That's really what his mind was. We should be Britain. So he comes in and he says, we need a central bank. Notice the difference. The Treasury Department was supposed to handle the financial side of things for the country. They were basically the accountant of the country. You could picture it that way. And they also issued currency. Hamilton says, I want a central bank. So what's a central bank? A central bank is one bank that loans out and handles all of the other banks. And they loan to the government. And they could support manufacturing as well as agriculture, in the words of Hamilton. Hamilton argued that a central economic system with managed debt was critical for the U.S. to handle commerce. Anybody see where that's going? He said the power of creating new funds upon new objects of taxation by its own authority.
Dude, that's so corrupt.
I'm going to read it again. The power of creating new funds upon new objects of taxation by its own authority.
With no check. Who's checking that?
Would enable the national government to borrow as far as its necessities might require. Foreigners, as well as citizens of America, could then reasonably repose confidence in its engagements. You know what that just said? Let's make a debt slave of the U.S. government to a central bank. Where are we now?
That's right. Perpetual debts is what kills nations, man. Because you're in hock to the borrower, servant to the lender. That's all scriptural, dude. You know what I'm saying? And the founders actually talked a lot about not being in debt and how debt will crush the nation. You know, a lot of them did. And here we have this guy saying we need to be like the other nations.
Funny, huh?
Isn't that crazy?
We got to be like Europe. We got to. Don't you hear that today? We have to be like Denmark. Socialist.
That was a great Pelosi.
I try very hard. I've been practicing
that was awesome.
my Pelosi.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Carrie Booth, she says, I wanted to be an entrepreneur at 18. Wanted to be a vet tech. She wanted to be a vet tech. She never used her schooling. I pushed through to be an owner on my own. I say that to say this, you're dead on. Oh, her friend. I'm sorry. Her friend got a student loan. So the friend never used the schooling. Carrie pushed on to be an owner on her own. Exactly. Student loans are oh man, that's a whole different topic. Anyways.
So Benjamin Franklin actually said this. He said, think what you do when you run in debt. You give another power over your liberty.
Is that not Proverbs?
Dude.
What is it? The debtor is slave to the lender?
Yeah. And so will America never always have had debt? No. I mean, I think there's always, but is it a manageable debt? Is something, you know what I mean? And again, I know it's all about assets and weighing all this stuff out, but it's like, again, the asset's only worth to what the person wants to pay for it.
Right.
So we could say, well, it's valued at, but the housing market's proven it now. Well, these houses are going for $300,000 around here. Dude, 2 years ago they were worth 170.
Yeah.
Is
And-
someone coming in and buying them? No, they're still on the market.
Exactly. I have a house just around the corner from me. It's for sale on the market, probably 60,000 more than my house. It's right around the corner. And that house has been sitting overvalued for 2 months now, at least. Every time I walk past, there's a sign just hanging out there. The market determines the value. People determine the value. Anyways, so this whole central bank thing became a constitutional debate. Jefferson and Madison were adamant, we do not want a national bank. We do not want a central bank. Let the states handle their own banking system. We'll handle the currency. And isn't it funny? Somebody comes in and says, well, we need to just consolidate all of this. That's the way to really make it safe. So Hamilton thought the European central bank system was exactly what the U.S. needed. Now, America fought this idea for decades and decades, right? One could argue centuries. National banks would pop up every once in a while, such as in the Civil War. But finally, in the early 1900s, the federal government established the Federal Reserve. Don't let the name fool you. It is not a federal institution. It is a mostly private institution. If I remember correctly, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, they only have to have 20% government appointed officials on the board. So 80% of that board is private. Yet, they are the ones in control of the banking system, as well as making the U.S. government in debt to them. They determine the monetary policy going forward. They determine, well, interest rates, we need to bring them up. Oh, we need to bring them up. And now, today, it's not just fiat currency. They're doing credit, which means zeros and ones, which means, well, we'll throw more zeros and ones into this bank's account. Digital. They are truly creating money out of thin air.
Truth. Yeah, and every time, because I was thinking about this, and Josh actually talked about it earlier in his comments, the digital, like the government will say, this is just going to make it easier. It's easier to track. It's easier to tax, easier to come down on you with when it does go digital. This whole currency and crypto stuff. I remember Paul was like, yeah, nah, don't believe it. It's a scam, right? And you're like, yeah, but it's an easy dollar, right? I mean, people are thinking it's an easy buck. You can get into it. It's like, yeah, it's just also a setup. Governments are going to use that. Say, look at that craze that developed.
Yeah.
Well, if we just do our own, crypto, a global cryptocurrency, it's simple.
At some point, it's going to hit that.
Right. And that's that thing. And I kind of want to keep on this line of what were the founders saying about debt, right? And there's a lot to be said about it. But Thomas Jefferson once said, to preserve our independence, we must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt. We must make our election between economy and liberty, or profusion and servitude. I mean, many will say, especially today's experts will say, well, they didn't understand what we were going to go through today. No, you know what they understood? Government's not supposed to be involved in doing half the things that they're doing. And the only reason we need more debt is because we're guaranteeing things like checks that we don't have the money to cash, pensions, funds, giving to states, giving to other countries, right? And we borrow, right, to pay off debt. George Washington said to contract new debts is not the way to pay old ones.
Isn't it funny?
But dude, that's common sense.
We'll take more debt to pay off debt because that ends well. Paul, just to throw it out there, Paul said the board of governors are approved by the Senate. And one of the things that Jefferson points out about Hamilton, and I'm jumping to the last notes because this fits into that. Jefferson even said of Hamilton's central bank, Hamilton's financial system had two objects. First, as a puzzle to exclude popular understanding and inquiry. Isn't that interesting? Let's make it confusing so people just don't understand what's going on. Secondly, as a machine for the corruption of the legislature. And what actually happened, and Jefferson points this out, is when they were about to figure out national currency, they were about to figure out, okay, here's how we do this. People had bonds that were worth pennies in today's language. So all of these people, knowing what was about to happen, rushed up, purchased all of these bonds from these veterans, said, give me all of them. They're only worth pennies. I'll take them. Then the government said, we'll do them dollar to the dollar for
right.
those bonds. So all of these people who were in on it with Hamilton and his buddy Morris gathered up all of these bonds from unsuspecting people, and immediately, because the government switched their policy on it of, yeah, we'll redeem them to the dollar, they were instantly wealthy. Hamilton knew it the whole time, and Jefferson called him out on it. He said ships were moving in mass up and down, racing. People on horses were racing to get to New York because obviously information didn't travel very fast. Corruption. Always be careful when the government is suddenly, why do we have the Pelosi Act that's up by Josh Hawley now?
Sells off a few million in stock a few days before Google.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys.
You know. So Jefferson, he understood that Hamilton was intentionally creating a system of institutionalized corruption in order to buy the political support in Congress for his party's big government, mercantilism, imperialist agenda. Now, this gets even better. Jefferson recalled how President John Adams said of the British Constitution, "Purge that Constitution of its corruption and give to it its popular branch equality of representation, and it would be the most perfect constitution ever devised by the wit of man." Hamilton objected. He said, purge it of its corruption and give to it its popular branch equality of representation, and it would become an impractical government. As it stands at present, with all its supposed defects, it is the most perfect government which ever existed. Hamilton was so bewitched and perverted by the British example, wrote Jefferson, as to be under thorough conviction that corruption was essential to the government of a nation. Where are we at today?
Dude.
Where are we at today? I'm just asking. Just asking a question. I mean, when you look at the creation of a central bank, you look at the creation of a Federal Reserve, and there's this incestuous relationship. It's the same thing as the military-industrial complex. There is this thing going on of, look, give us this and we'll help you out.
Sure.
Once again, why is it that Pelosi sells off millions of dollars of Google stock just, a couple of weeks before the DOJ opens an antitrust lawsuit against them? This is dangerous when you get the government that close to a central economic system.
Right.
Because all of a sudden they've got their hands in the pot. And guess what? The pot can create as much money as it wants.
That's right. And they have that congressional immunity thing to just, well, I didn't know. You can't prove it. You can't think. And that's where people start to lose confidence. And this is where you got to start thinking. Just think with me for a second. Why all of these things happen, like shootings and what the media promotes. I'm not saying shootings don't happen. What I'm saying is what the media chooses to promote to distract the people, fear, COVID, all these other things, and government's pocketing. They're just making money behind the scenes, behind closed doors. I mean, how much money did Fauci make from all these companies and the kickbacks, right? Yeah. But we keep promoting fear so that we're not paying attention to what's going on behind the scenes, and we're not paying attention to trails or what's going on. And so fear has always been used by big governments, or by governments in general, actually, to stop the people and silence them and to shut them up. Sedition Act, you know what I mean? Like, it's constant fear, it's force. And so what they're doing now is, oh my gosh, what could happen to the dollar? Oh my gosh, what could happen to our money? Oh my gosh, what could happen here? And the more fear that they use, the more they keep you enslaved to, what are they going to say next? What's going to happen next? And yet just last week with all your friends, you're like, I can't trust a politician to save my life, right? So we say we can't trust them, and we don't trust them, and that they're not trustworthy because they can't even keep to their own words. They don't even know how to balance their own checkbook, right? But then we depend on them for the answers when we don't have the answers. And that's what's so dangerous about our nation. That's what's so dangerous about most citizens, I think, is that they themselves don't see the corruption in its true intent. They see it and then they don't believe it, and it's because it's not in them. And so what happens is when fear comes, they start to go, well, I guess we need answers. So instead of actually doing the right thing, turn to the Lord, turn to each other, right? Our people, we turn to what the politician's going to say next. And then that's what happens, right? It just over and over and over again, you see Like I started asking myself, okay, there was 3 shootings a few days ago, like in consecutive, and it's like I thought, that probably happens daily, but why are they choosing to promote this right now? What's going on? All of a sudden, the Pelosi story pops up. I'm like, and they buried that, like it's like sold off stock, blah blah blah. It was just, Hunter Biden's laptop stuff, right? They just bury, and they start promoting all this stuff, and then they promote to you the fine stuff, the spectacle stuff. What's going on with the next movie star,
or a football player who
football player.
collapses.
Yeah, and they keep you distracted with benevolence and goodwill too, to watch or to ignore what's really going on with government. The whole idea of what we're talking about here is liberty. How to keep you free, right? What is your own possession, property, life, liberty, all that stuff that God gave to you, and how far we can go when we don't trust God. It's like, you know what? We'll just create a central bank. It's going to be good. Don't worry about
It'll
it.
take care of it all.
Yeah. I mean, and we're all going to be on the same page. It's going to be kumbaya. We're going to take care of all the people, right? Because that's what the founders were thinking. I don't care if you disagree with me or not. Okay, we did this to keep, this is why I'm saying, were they really nefarious? Because they were willing to put their own lives on the line and give up everything for it. So I think they did believe, hey, we need to create our own country, right?
Yeah.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
For us to destroy it because we don't understand government and the basic concepts of liberty, because people are afraid to really learn about liberty, to understand what liberty really means. That liberty is truly you keeping your business off of someone else. That's true liberty, right? They're afraid of that, and we're afraid of that as a nation because we're afraid of what could happen as consequence. And I'm going to submit to you, and I said it at a podcast before, look at all the laws we have now and look at the corruption, chaos, and the crap that's happening. Except it's a controlled chaos. Whereas we don't know what it would be under liberty because we've never really had it. We've always had to have some kind of government over us. We don't understand what liberty is. We truly don't. Like, if you think about liberty, freedom, you truly don't even know what that is. You've never even experienced it. But you've, in your mind, considered, if there's no laws, oh my gosh, it's called an inward law. It's called love your neighbor as yourself. It's called the gospel. You know what I mean? Goodwill towards men, that kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying laws are not important. What I'm saying is this is what we've done. And when we're talking about, especially the finances thing, when you brought it up, I was like, oh, bore fest. But I'm trying to understand economics as much as I can, right? Because it's not my favorite topic at all. But it's a topic that is needed.
Right. And when I put it on there, I was just like, oh, this would be good for us to dive into. And then I looked at it when Paul and I were talking about the next topic, and I was like, oh my gosh, how do I? Because it's such a massive topic. And it's something that I wish I fully understood, but there's so much involved in all of this. And it's important at the same time for us to learn and grow and understand and get a bigger perspective, because in that we learn how to have liberty. Because if you understand what's going on around you, you can understand what you're standing up against.
Exactly.
And this idea of liberty, the more you understand where you're being pressed, the more you understand where to stand.
That's right.
Right. Carrie says, I pay with cash now at tills, and young cashiers are like, wow, cash, never see that anymore. Right. Said, and most don't know how to count it back. In that, I see conditioning, acceptance. Cash is becoming weird, if that makes sense. Absolutely. It's the movement forward of the whole system. The whole system is moving itself forward to where you just rely on what the experts, what the authorities have put in place for you. You just rely on that. You continue to move forward. That's where you give up your liberty.
Bingo.
How many of you know how to grow or hunt your own food? That's not a cap, not a shot, but a question.
And a legit one. If you're honest with yourself.
200 years ago, how many people knew how to grow and hunt their own food? We are now into a system where if the electricity went out within 2 months, probably 60, 70% of the population would be dead, right? Now, numbers aside, think about it. Our self-sufficiency protects our liberty. This includes financial system. This includes, we're complaining about eggs. You know what Melissa and I are talking about? It might be time to get those chickens we want. And I believe Port St. Lucie still has an ordinance in place of no chickens, which means, okay, now I got to go fight that.
Well, let's go fight it.
Let's go fight it.
But
right?
I think too, like, this is why it was so important for a lot of people that were saying I remember 10, 15 years ago, the skilled trades are going to be useless in a new technological era. Well, if a whole system goes down, all of technology goes down. So your skilled trades are going to be necessary. Yeah. I'm so glad I learned how to roof and use a hammer. I'm glad I learned how to weld. I'm glad I learned how to do all those things, right? Because I can at least get back into that, get my mind back into it.
You understand the concept of construction.
Construction and like what's necessary to do, fixing up things, that kind of stuff. And again, I've been out of that loop for 8-9 years, maybe 10 years. But it's like I picked it all up and I know it, and how to work on cars, that kind of thing. That's why it's so important to teach our kids and let our kids know, hey, there's skilled trades. And so my sons, they're going to go do these summer classes. It's hard because I'm gone a lot or whatever, but
no, I'm with you.
To teach them, hey, go tinker on that car, go tinker on this, And I think that if the system falls, which it could, we don't know.
We have no clue.
We don't know. It could be, are you prepared to do bartering? Are you prepared for that? Will you have, do we fight for cows too? Because I think I got enough grass back there for some cows.
Let's fight for it.
Right. You imagine all the cow pies and never mind.
Which would be manure for your
garden.
Hey! Josh says, what is happening now is the start of the digital currency. In turn, will help set up the end times economic system. I know a movie that talks about that.
Holy cats.
Maybe go check out Left Behind. Carrie says, knowing how to cook and mend socks is important too. Most don't even know how to make their own. No eggs, there's substitutes. My hubby is handy, works in HVAC, which helps in a lot of ways. Exactly. And it may be something where you need a skill in order to be able to barter with somebody to where they could grow some food for you. That's how the whole system grew anyways.
Yeah.
Right? Sewing's important. If I don't want to sew my own socks, I go to Carrie and I say, look, I've got some eggs. You want some eggs? This is where money developed because it was easier to say, here's some money. You go buy your steak instead of the eggs that I have to offer you, right? And so it's important to learn these self-sufficiency skills because it also gives you confidence. And I'm going to go on this trail for a second. Stick with me, but I think this is important. This is very important to liberty. I've thought a lot about why was America at the founding so gung-ho about fighting this Revolutionary War? Now, obviously, there are a bunch of dissenters, all of that, but there was this strong group because over 130 years, the colonies had developed an identity of confidence. They fought the French and Indian War for the British. They sweated, they bled, they died for an identity of the colonies. This is us. They were self-sufficient. They did their own thing. England was over on the other side. They couldn't really help. They did their own thing. So when England started oppressing them, they said, wait a second, we're our own people. We can take care of ourselves. Stop trying to oppress us. You call us your subjects. You call us your citizens, yet you're not treating us like everybody else. They had confidence, so they fought for liberty. As a people lose confidence in themselves, they lose self-sufficiency, they lose the passion for liberty.
Ooh. That little minute right there, y'all.
Lily Kate.
That's a clip. That
Lily Kate.
Right there, hey. Right on the Insta faces.
Yeah, go put it on
right
the
there.
Insta faces.
Yeah.
If people lose confidence
Dang, that was
in
fire,
themselves,
bro.
if they lose confidence in themselves, they lose liberty. This is why self-sufficiency, understanding who you are, becoming your own person,
call, dude,
helps you develop liberty.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I could have been more succinct than that. That was I'm so glad I'm surrounded by smart people. Because I ain't sometimes. And I'm glad that other people have the giftings.
Extremely brilliant.
I'm glad other people have giftings that I don't, right? Because that's why people watch the podcast. That's why they listen. Right? Because some of us don't have the time to research this stuff. And, we do. And we sit around thinking about, man, okay, what is going to be beneficial for the people today?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the principles of liberty. And the reason we're doing that is because I don't think in America, I could do all my Constitution classes, all sort of stuff, but if they don't understand liberty, you know what they're hearing? We need to be free, so we need to elect that guy. We need to go do this. No. You need to understand liberty for yourself first.
Right.
Then you can fight from a place of purity, not a place of republicanism or democratism or socialism or any other ism. You fight from a place of liberty. It's like, no, even if I elect you, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire because you're the one that's supposed to protect my rights. See what I'm saying? So like our mentality this year was, how do we disciple them to understand liberty? And I think that's our calling now, is put that confidence in people. They can do it themselves. Then they won't be dependent on government. They won't be dependent on, oh my gosh, our school systems. Well, then pull your kids out. The only way it's going to hurt the schools if we pull our kids out. Mm-hmm. They don't have the money to spend.
And notice what happens. People don't pull their kids out because they're not confident they can educate their kids themselves.
Because they need 2 or 3 jobs. Or maybe God wants you to get rid of all that. Maybe he just wants one job for the family. Got to get a cheaper house. You got to do things go to Aldi, right? Not Target. Maybe go to Costco. And we exhume ourselves in this whole thing, right? To abdicate responsibility. Did you really want, I know this is going to sound bad, but just hear my heart in this.
Go for it.
Did you have children because you love the idea of children, or did you have them so you could raise them? Oh, seriously. Did you have children because the idea of children was cool and you really wanted the little bambinos running around? Or did you have them so it's like, well, I suppose I'll send them to the school system for 12 years and then another school system for 4, and hopefully they won't get indoctrinated by all that stuff. No, we are the ones that are raising our children. We are the ones creating these little humans to be good, ethical, godly, moral people. We are the ones telling them, these were my mistakes, y'all, and I'm going to be blunt with you. And you're going to face things that I didn't face, right? But hopefully what I faced will help you through what you're facing. Did you have children to just leave them to a system and just like the idea of children? Or did you actually truly get married because you love your husband because God gave them to you, and those kids are a product of how you raise them? And we're going to answer to God for that stuff. We really are. Let's just be honest here. We're going to answer to God for this. I didn't pick Carrie, and she didn't pick me because we thought that's a great idea to get married. There's a genuine love there. My dudes, my little guys, I genuinely give a crap about what they do, what they watch, what they think, because they're still under my roof. I'm not controlling them, dude. They can do what they want in the sense of morality, right? But I'm not holding them back from dyeing their hair or going to play basketball. They don't have to be preacher like me. But you darn right I'm in their lives about, dude, what you watching? What you thinking? Why are you thinking that? Why do you act like that? Dude, why are you doing that? That is my job. I'm going to answer to God for them and how I raise them. I don't want to say, Lord, I wish I'd have done more. They're my boys, man. And they're going to be me. And how I raise them is what they'll represent. I don't care what you say. It's the truth. It's the truth. That's my job. And you know why I know it's my job and it's the truth? Because I'm the one with the knowledge. I've been given the knowledge of the things of the kingdom. And I need to learn to give it to them. And if I can teach my kids, I can teach anybody. Seriously.
Right.
If I can witness to my kids, see them baptized, see them in the church, understand the principles of liberty and the Constitution and stuff, I can teach anyone. Because my 3 little boys think differently and they learn differently, right? They're your training ground to train other people. You see what I'm saying? But we're leaving them to a school system so that they can train them. And then we're like, well, I don't know how to witness to people. I don't know how to talk about things. Come on. That's why he gave you those kids, to train you to do that. So you can talk to anybody out there with a hard heart, hard conscience, all this, soft, whatever. And you can talk to them. Gosh, I love Revelation because I didn't even think about this before.
Oh, that's good.
Right? Like, why do you have kids, Mike? Why do you want to adopt another? Dude, that is the picture of Christ. That is the picture of God to us. I mean, I've said this before, and I mean it as a joke, but I don't. You're more Christian than me. Like, to want to adopt a kid. That's Jesus represented, man. That's the Father. That's the heart of the Father. But I think more and more, these principles aren't just to learn something new today, or, gosh, that was a little boring today. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's just like going to church and saying, oh, worship was a little boring. You didn't go there to nitpick worship. You went there for the Lord. You come here to learn something about liberty. right? And that we, like the stuff you just heard today, I promise you, some of you have never even heard before. That's why you're coming here. Because we want to teach you something I was never taught. I was never taught liberty. I was never taught what it was like not to have a government breathe down your throat. I was raised in it. I was taught you're born, Social Security. You are literally in a system the moment you're born. They control everything you do until you die. They literally do.
And the difference between what we do and I'm not calling people out, but what others do is we're actually giving you the heart to move forward. There is a difference between fear mongering and criticism, right? There's a difference between, oh, well, they own you from birth to grave and you can't do anything about it. And the system is going to crush you. And, you know, the Illuminati and New World Order, Bilderberg. There's a difference between all of that, which you can go down that rabbit hole fast and it becomes so dark and depressive. And where we say, look, this is what's going on. Here's the wickedness that we're seeing. Here's some motives that we seem to see. But here's your philosophy that we think you should carry. Here's your heart that we think you should carry. And here's how that will carry you forward. Here's how you can make change and difference having that philosophy, that outlook, that perspective, right? That's why we're hammering liberty, because if it gets in here and then in here, now you can defend it. You can go forward on it, and you can point out the misconceptions people have in their world. You can stand before a city council and tell them, you see this wrong. You have been viewing this wrong. There is a whole different aspect to all of this. And you can get victory. You can vote for the right people who understand it perfectly.
Right.
So, guys,
end it out.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Self-Evident podcast.
We really do this stuff, and Mike will always tell me, like, man, this is gonna be a little boring, bro. Like, but it's like, dude, the sometimes the boring things, like, that's what you have to drudge through to understand the big things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The mundane stuff, you got to understand it to understand how a whole thing functions. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's easy to say, well, I just want to, I just want to vote. Well, okay, that's the bare minimum. That's like not even the bare minimum. That's a crumb. You know, there's more to this, and you got to be educated and learn. So, guys, we love you very much.
Yes, we do.
You know, we're praying for you. We come into this podcast thinking, man, we got to keep feeding the people with liberty. And I know, you know, for us, we're not the kind of guys that are looking for views and all that stuff. We're looking for impact, and the more impact we create, we love it. We just started our touring last weekend. I was just in Georgia.
Yep.
It was awesome where we were. God's so moved. It was great. And we start up here at the beginning of February. We're going to Nevada. Beginning of February, Nevada. I'm excited. We get to have fun and preach. Hopefully turn some lives. See God saving souls, healing people, that kind of thing. That's our job. And we're asking you to keep praying for us as we go out and do those things, because we're always under attack. And
right.
It's spiritual attack, physical attack, whatever. You'd be surprised. You can go to a church, you can go to a school, whatever. And the response is the same. Even if they're Christian, there's still questions of, are we really American? Should we be a socialist nation? That kind of thing. So there's always some kind of corruption going on that has infiltrated even the church. And we need to be praying for the bride. We need to be praying to get rid of all the evil. So, guys, God bless you. We love you. We'll see you Monday. Hot dog. Well, next week I'll be in Nevada, so
it'll be me.
It'll be you. Or I could chime in, you know.
Yeah, we could do that.
We could do that. We haven't really done that.
No, we could bring you in. We'll give you a 5-minute spot.
Call my agent.
All right,
love you guys.
Love you guys. Have a great day.
What was that?
Shut